4, 3, 2, 1, sync.
Sync.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Brainstorm episode 14.
Hi.
I'm Var.
I'm Meso.
I'm John.
And I'm Prpl.
Once again, this is Brainstorm. This is the show where we do the thing with the Bionicles, and we stick the Bionicles into the Word documents, and we write stuff on those Word documents, and sometimes people like them, and sometimes people hate them. And that is
sometimes people don't even read them.
most of the times, no one reads them. Not even us.
Reading's overrated.
If you're just joining us, the first time you've tuned in to a Brainstorm episode, we have been doing this project for about a year now, where we formulate our own Bionicle reboot.
We're getting there, slowly but surely.
Yeah, on the heel of G2's cancellation. We
Rest
have
in
been
peace.
here, and we've been doing it for a while now, and LEGO is all on board. So that's
Oh
what
my
we
god,
enjoy.
will you stop saying that, dude? People actually take that seriously.
I know. that's
Every
why it's
episode I
hilarious.
see like a comment. Is this official? What's happening here?
Yes, random person who just tuned in on this video for the first time, it is official.
No, it's not!
Feels bad, man.
It's
It's not official.
I am the voice of reason for the people who
and
can't
I am the
understand
voice
sarcasm.
of reason, and I say it's not.
And I'm the voice of truth, and I say it's official.
No, you're not!
See,
the
it's
voice
amazing
of
how you
truth
could just
tells
say
us a
things.
different story. And the voice
No.
of truth says
What's the deal
Bionicle
here?
G3 is canon.
Discrepancy.
Canon to what? Like,
It's the
Canon?
new canon.
To the CEO of LEGO, to who? What's his name? They changed it recently. Who's the new dude?
I have not a clue, dude.
man,
Never mind. I was gonna say. I was gonna.
Willis
yeah.
in the live studio audience says if you're just joining us, they've been talking about G3 for a year and only now figured out how tall their legs are. And,
Oh my
and to that I
gosh.
say, incorrect, sir. We still haven't figured out how long their legs are.
That's true. We still haven't have a concrete Matoran design. We still don't have that. We still don't have a
I thought we
Matoran
were,
TV
like,
show
getting places,
design.
though.
Who needs final stuff? Who cares? Who wants that? I don't want that. Do you want that? I don't want that. No one wanted that.
I prefer
Why
the
not?
wonderful joy of ambiguity. It brightens my day.
I prefer not knowing anything and having nothing being official or finished. It's the
Yep.
best way to do things.
You can't have plot holes
Why
that
are
way.
you like this?
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
On
Puzzles will make
today's
the movie good.
episode, we are going to be spending most of our episode time doing the same thing we did last week and addressing some fan pitches, some community feedback. If we've got time, we might try to jump back into the episode writing spiel, but I don't think we will.
We've also got a lot of feedback on the Story Bible, which came out.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I meant by responding to some
amazing,
feedback.
amazing, incredible feedback on the Story Bible. So, you want to do pitches first?
Sure, we can do pitches first. John, I know that you had some in mind that you actually wanted to talk about, so I don't know if there's anything that you'd like to go ahead and start off with, or...
Sure. Let me. All right, so let me look at this. Let me look at this deal. Part of the thing is always like forgetting what we've talked about and what we haven't. But
Yeah.
one thing I thought would be really interesting to touch upon for a little bit, which was pretty decently made, was the fighting styles concept.
That is
Pitch
new.
world building topic. This is I don't think we've talked about this before.
Nope.
And I actually am going to load it here
We
on our.
addressed fighting styles before, very long ago, very early on. There's another topic about it. This is a different topic, so
Okay.
but I know
Zoom
we
in a
talked
little
about
bit
it
here
before.
on our live stream.
It's so long ago though
window.
that it's hard to really say any of that stuff is still true.
It's not.
I know-
Yeah,
If we
no,
can't even
totally.
remember it, it's not true.
Yeah.
So one of the things that they're talking about is how each region has a fighting style and how it's a little different from each of the Toa. So I guess it's not just about how the Toa fight; it's how do the actual like regions fight. So Ihu is the first one he lists. It's inspired by Kopaka. They part of the like the entire culture is a calculated logical thing, and so he proposes that they're very smart strategic warriors. They kind of like they use shields and spears mostly. Spears have a long range, shields protect you and also protect your allies and stuff. He also compares them to the Elves in the Battle of Helm's Deep from Lord of the Rings. And so basically the idea is that they're almost a cohesive unit. They all form. Do you guys ever see Troy, that movie?
No.
Afraid not.
Okay.
I believe I did once in class, my history class, but I don't remember anything about it.
Well, there's basically like there's some formations they do. He didn't say this, but I was just thinking about this, where they have like the turtle, where they all take their shields and they like form like a giant like walking turtle of like, and then you throw stuff at them. You can't bounce stuff to shields. That is a type of strategy that the Ehuans would come up with. So
okay, can I accept this?
Sounds good to me.
They learned strats.
They mix ice into the style, throwing icicles between attacks, or like making him slip while they're charging, that kind of thing.
You did,
and it's mostly defensive.
So we're settling on Kopaka having a spear then.
Yes, we are. Maybe, but I don't know. I actually was kind of fond of the idea of him having like a fencing sword, kind of.
Yeah, I was too, but it doesn't really fit.
Well, I think
I
actually think so.
A spear is distinct, certainly. I wouldn't mind the intermediary of a rapier or a fencing sword of sorts. I just don't want him to have a massive great sword.
No,
so long as he has anything but that, I'm happy.
That's more of a Tahu weapon, is the great sword. What's so funny?
This GIF in the chat that was posted by Prpl.
Bollywood at its finest.
Alright, hold on.
Can this be our Ehuan fighting strategy right here?
Yes, that's incredible. This is the best thing I've ever seen. This is going in the video. Whoa.
Oh my gosh. That's so great.
That is metal. Literally.
What's up with you and this whole "this is metal" thing?
It's metal.
When did you join the Headbangers crew?
I love that he bounces like it bounces like it's it's made out of rubber too, not like steel. Like he bounces upright. That's so good. We should see a Bollywood movie sometime. They look like crazy ridiculous and awesome.
Maybe. Anyway.
All right.
Continue with this pitch. I like the Ehuan so far.
I think Kopaka, like, this is what most of the Ehuans do. Kopaka can't have his own weapon. He doesn't have to have. He's a part of the royal family. He could have trained in different fighting styles.
Checks the fighting styles of his people because his people are trash and beneath him.
What a rebel.
Let's see. Mengai. Is it Mengai or Mengaya? I've written it as Mengaya several times.
Mengaya.
Oh, it's Bengai.
It's Mengaya.
It's
okay,
like
it
manga,
is
but with
Mengaya.
an I.
Mangai Namco.
No, it's like manga with an IA. Mengaya, Prpl.
Yeah, he forgot the last A, or he thought it was Mengai. It's Mengaya.
Okay, basically, Mangayans are more one-on-one fighters. They don't. I mean, they fight in groups, but they're not fighting together.
It's manga.
Oh.
Manga. They use small bursts of flames to distract their opponent. They create smoke cover, but they're basically one-on-one fighters. They're like, almost more like the Spartans as opposed to,
Are the Spartans?
I don't know what they get.
One-on-one fighters, though. Oh wait, no.
Aren't they?
No.
Gladiators?
Like which Spartans are you talking about?
Gladiators.
Halo Spartans, obviously.
I am kind of
yeah,
thinking
that's what I thought you were talking about at
first,
first, and I was like, but no. The only reason there was ever a solo Spartan was because Master Chief was the only one left. And then I was like, okay, so he must be talking about the 300 Spartans or Greek Spartans, but no, they're the ones who do those shield formations and everything and the big lines.
They do shield formations. I think the Romans actually are the ones that do that. Now I think about it. Yikes. Okay, getting my ancient history mixed up. I'm sure. I guess what I'm getting at is maybe not the actual historical Spartans, but the idea of, like Prpl was saying, a gladiator, or people who are, again, trained to fight one-on-one with someone, and they can fight together, but that's not like they don't have that same deal with
I always had
strategy,
faith the
information,
Glatorian
and
would come back, and this is their time to shine.
Oh my god.
Right now.
I mean, like they certainly are proficient in one-on-one combat. Like they have the whole Ignalu game where they essentially are fighting each other as a gladiator sort of combat thing, but in terms of their fighting style, is it it wouldn't, like, if they were going to war, it's not like they have one troop run out while the rest are stay behind and see what happens.
They stagger their troops.
Why not?
Because that's stupid. That's why.
No, I think that's true. I think they should have some level of strategies even still, but I don't know if
I stand corrected. A single troop can take down multiple enemies.
All right,
These gifts.
let's see this GIF.
So many epic gifts today.
Oh, there we go.
Wow,
It takes you guys a long time to load gifts.
That's a slow reaction
Well-
time. Okay.
I'm not looking at. I have to like. I'm looking at the screen, so I gotta copy it and paste it and load it up. That whole deal. Anyhow, one of the things that I feel that he did make mention of here that I think is very kind of important is the idea that like they are, like attack an enemy and try to force an opening instead of waiting for one, and that's a big difference between Mangaya and Ihu. The Ihuans will wait for their opening and then like take advantage of it as soon as it happens. The Mangayans will force an opening. I feel like that's an important distinction that
Their
fits into the
aggressive
characters.
nature.
Right.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Kane, they don't like close confrontation. They try to do long distance battles because that's their region's built out of floating islands. Let's see. They use a special shock troop to break any possible defensive formation. So kind of like he compares it to the Eagles in the Hobbit's final battle. So like they will ride in on Rahkshi and they plow through an enemy formation, and then like the other group will shower them with arrows like from far away. They employ a group of elites whose job is to fall in the middle of the enemy, kill as many as possible, and then get pulled out before by a rope connected. Think of the Blue Soldiers in the movie The Great Wall, which I haven't seen. I think that starred Matt Damon, and it was kind of weird, maybe a little racist. I'm kidding.
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that, though. They also prefer to use the spears or axes. And then like that's
Chop.
that's what they do. That's their whole deal.
Okay, sounds good.
Anyone have anything to say about that other than cool?
I'm totally
Awesome.
a fan.
Neato.
100%.
Cool.
All right.
Cool.
I like it.
All right,
There's nothing else
Motara. He gives 3 different styles. I'm gonna try to
boy.
run through them real quick. Double Philo style. I don't know where he got the names from, but
Gesundheit.
double Philo style is it's aggressive and has unusual movements. So chain-sized blunderbuss, normal swords and spears, anything kind of goes. They throw sand in the face of their opponents. Coraza style.
Pocket sand.
Yes. Coraza. Basically, it's by mercenaries who protect the cargo. Most of the users of the style have a shield. The idea is to protect yourself and then hit the opponent so hard they'll be unable to fight. So, like, very defensive and then one giant attack. It's a very defensive style. And then the martial style, basically when it's used by like ex-military and old war soldiers, the style leaves no quarter and gives the impression that the practitioner is unmovable. Well-timed counterattacks make a parry. This style tends to hurt the opponent while they smash themselves against an impenetrable defense. So they know how to cover parts of their body with stone. Weapons actually aren't really required. They just kind of use their body alone. And they can make blunt weapons by channeling stone energy, I guess, or around their fist or whatever.
Clever.
Sometimes their warhammers, Phil's mace is used. They're made of extremely hard stone, that kind of thing. And most of these users are very strong, especially in the legs.
They don't skip leg day.
They do not skip leg day. They are all about leg day.
They might skip arm day though.
Yeah, they just have like these really skinny noodle arms.
The opposite of our animation designs, apparently.
Ha
ha! Let's get to that in a sec. All right, Tiro. They prioritize strategy in large-scale fights and intelligence in one-on-one combat. They use all sorts of weapons. They generally focus on warhammers and claws. They use the claws to move around the trees and walls in an easier way, or like the warhammer to smash stuff. They come out of unexpected angles. They tend to use vegetation to snare and hide, so they're a lot more sneakier, I guess, than other other cultures. The Warhammers are able to topple trees down with a single swing. They're kind of like almost, I wouldn't say like the Ewoks, but they're much more tribal in nature. They'll run through the trees like Assassin's Creed people in Assassin's Creed 3. You know how they're like parkour through trees. Use their claws to go through them, and they will attack from all directions. So like they'll attack from like the sky or maybe even from underground, possibly. The last one is Naho. Nahoans spend most of their lives in the ocean, and their fighting style is kind of hard to predict. It's almost like a dance in a way because it's flowing like water. The style is known for its accuracy and used to aim at the gaps in defense. They use all sorts of tridents, hooks, chain staves, custom staffs, daggers, water manipulation. Some go so far as to manipulate the flexible part of a weapon, allowing for unnatural movements. The most advanced are capable of creating flow, creating a trail of blurry images that confuse the opponent. I don't know how I feel about that, actually. That might not
Sounds a little too much.
Yeah, I feel that might be a little too much. Obviously, them moving like water seems cool, and I think that works with their characters. Yeah. But other than that, there you go.
Nice.
All right. Okay. I mean, I don't really have
Very
anything.
cool.
All of that sounds like it follows from a logical progression.
Yeah.
So.
I don't have too much to say in opposition to it.
I think that this is essentially canon, so we can kind of mark it down as such. Essentially canon.
Essentially canon.
We will
Diagonal
draw upon
thumbs
this
up.
for like actual stuff.
What?
It's like it's not an actual thumbs up, but it's like a sideways thumbs up. It's like an almost.
It's like a halfway
diagonal
thumbs up in the sense that, yeah, sure, but also like don't know when it will come into practice just yet. So who knows? But most likely will.
Civil War, probably.
Civil War. Whose side are you on? All right, Var, I think it's your turn to take on a pitch that you want to talk about. Because I've talked enough. I know you have one prepared.
See, you're under the impression that I've actually read a pitch.
Oh my god.
You actually asked me yesterday, it's like, should we read something? I was like, we should look over some pitches. And you're like, yeah, okay. And then, like today you're like, but you know what? I'm going to go watch Star Wars.
And then we played Overwatch until 4 a.m.
We did. That's
It was
true.
3 a.m. actually.
Yeah, it was 4 a.m. before I went to bed.
I went to bed at 4 a.m.
Yeah, just because you left at 3 a.m. doesn't mean we went to bed at 3 a.m.
But it's when we stopped Overwatch.
Okay.
I played Overwatch afterwards.
Just because you stopped playing Overwatch doesn't mean everyone else stopped playing Overwatch.
Var, you literally closed the game.
Doesn't mean I didn't come back to the game.
Did you though?
Yeah.
No.
Shows how much you know. I didn't, but it shows how much you know.
No, I was like,
Oh,
that's
shut
such
up!
a lie. That's such a total lie.
He was too busy debating with Ben on the merits of Star Wars.
Yeah,
Oh boy.
indeed.
As was I. It'll be
Listen,
interesting
man,
coverage, guys. Look
Star
forward
Wars
to
is
it.
more important right now. That's all I'm gonna say.
Swars.
It's fair. It's fair.
You gotta prioritize your
Star
fandom
Wars.
sometimes.
I want to make Star Wars s'mores and call them s'wars.
Some people think that we should do the same thing.
You're
Do
right.
what?
Prioritize
The-
the fandom.
Yeah,
Prioritize
because
the
we want to be
fandoms.
male, and they want they want all this stuff, and like, how dare we? How dare
No.
we?
Well,
You guys can write G3 fanfiction. No one's stopping you.
good point. Anyway,
You want to go back to the general questions topic while you figure
There's more?
something out, and
yeah. Are there more
there's-
questions?
There are more questions. The topic
right.
has been updated with like some more
Oh my
questions.
gosh.
from people.
Okay.
Let's go. More
We already
general
answered
questions.
so
I-
many, but
I answered a decent bit of them, but I think that we should. Some of them are good enough to go over on the actual podcast because
all right.
Cool.
Where is that topic? I just saw it. Oh, there it is. Okay. All right.
Wow,
So
this
did
is-
he update the first post, or did he make a new post?
he made a new post.
Okay, cool. No, I have to find it.
Do-do-do-do.
This is why we need TLDRs.
Yeah.
Brickonicle TLDR.
Okay. So one important thing that he does talk about. Hold on. Let me zoom out. It's a little too far in here. That I think we should also think about is how do things like time work. This guy is, by the way, this guy named Toa Noah Wafflemeister.
Great name.
which I don't think is his real name. He's not the guy who created this topic, by the way. It's a different dude.
I love the name.
I think it is his
I don't know,
real
man.
name.
I'm convinced his mom named him that one.
I'm friends with lots of waffle meisters.
No, he's like,
a very common
his mom's
name.
like, my dad was named Noah, and his dad's like, what about Toa Noah?
Toa Noah.
Nuva.
His dad was Makuto of Oz, so that's why.
Wow.
This older dude, loving Bionicle back in the day.
Hey,
All right.
references no one will get. What's the question? Which post
How
is it?
do
Can
things
you
like
link
time
the
work?
Post, by the way.
It's a 5th post. Yeah, sure. Let me link it.
All right, well, never mind. It's okay. 5th post is fine. All right, so how does time work? Well,
How
see,
does time work?
There are these things called seconds, and
events
they
happen?
tick by.
When
and
a
then if
mom
you add
second
them
and a
all
daddy
up,
second come one right after the other.
And if you add them all up, you get a minute.
No, okay, but there is an important thing here. I think that we're going to overlook a lot of this stuff because there is a different way time should work. If you think about how time works, how we categorize minutes, a minute is 60 seconds, an hour is 60 minutes, a day is 24 hours. But that's all kind of weird.
You sounded
if you think
uncertain
about it.
there.
I'm uncertain about why we chose base 12 essentially to be our thing, or it's 6, 60, 12, and then 2 12s is a day, and then it's we use 10 for everything, but except for minutes and seconds and hours.
And
but
feet and inches.
But basically, what he proposes is that there are 4 seasons: the Ta season, Ko season, Li season, and Ga season. And then those are the summer, winter, fall, and spring, and then they get
Yeah, didn't we already establish that we don't have seasons though?
We did.
Yeah, basically. All the places don't have seasons because they're all one biome, or their own individual biome, basically, because of the elemental gods. But he wanted to know if is a year the same 365 days that it is, because that's how long it takes our planet to go around the sun.
Right.
I feel like
the same time.
this is gonna get really complicated if we start changing up how many days are. Well, days are in a year is more simple, but if we start changing how many seconds are in a minute, minutes are an hour,
I have no
totally
interest
agree with you.
That's
in
the problem,
conceits
'cause,
of human time.
Yeah, because the problem is obviously we're on a world that's very different from our own. So the realistic answer would be that yes, there would be different days and different times, and it'd be calculated differently because they're on a planet that's not in the same solar system that we are, in the same location that we are,
Right.
And for all we know, there could be 2 suns. Who knows, right? So it's it's difficult to quantify exactly how time would be measured on their place, but trying to go that deep into it, I think, is going to get too complex, more complex than what will be relevant.
It's one of those changes that I just deem unnecessary. That makes it it's just to be distinct for change's sake, kind of like how time worked in G1.
Yeah,
it's
there
just
was
weird to get a grasp of how long things took. I think for it to be relatable, it can be the same.
at most, I feel like you can change the names up or whatever, or cycles or whatever.
Cycles
for
is good.
time,
Yeah.
but.
I feel like again, if you think about other science stuff, how long is a day on Tatooine? No one cares. That's what it boils down to. We just accepted that there
You
was
say
a day
that,
and
but
there
I'm
was a night,
pretty
and it's
sure there is a day. There's that exact information's out there in some Star Wars wiki or
100%.
something.
It's in the ultimate guide, or they probably have it listed. What I'm saying though is that
long is a
narratively,
day?
no one cares. When Luke goes to sleep at night after the sunset of Obi-Wan, and then he goes to the cantina in the morning, we assume that that's just a night in the morning. We don't care how long that is, if their days are longer, that kind of thing. And I feel like we should keep that because we're already introducing so much new things into this world. So just to make sure everyone's clear on the same page, that's why we're going to keep time the same. It's basically the same as it is here.
Its orbital period is 304 standard days. Tatooine. 304.
304.
Sure.
I don't mind changing the
Nice.
length of the year, but I just don't want to. I feel we can
Yeah,
get away with that. But I
it
feel
just
it's too
complexes
much.
things. I think realistically, it would be different. So I think it's important that everybody acknowledges that. Like, if this was a real place with real people living on it, then it would be different. But for the sake of the story, we're probably not going to dive that deep into it. So just assume that it's the same.
Good on you for thinking, Waffle.
Maybe the great beings were used to be humans, and they based it off their home planet.
Crackpot theory, I like it.
All right. Are Matoran still Tomatoran and Komatoran?
I think we said no.
No, they're not Mangaians and Ihuans.
Yeah, Mangaians and Ihuans, right? That's what I thought, and that's why I basically said I don't like the idea of. It was better when everything had the Ta prefix, so Takoro, Tamatoran, Tawahi.
Now that it doesn't, there's no reason for that prefix.
Yeah, exactly. Let's keep going down. Matoran children. This is something we touched upon before, but I think we should clarify.
Yeah.
Yeah. Would the Mangaian and Ihuan marriage, if they had a child, the child be red, white, both, or pink? Would the element of fire be fire, ice, or both? Pink. It would not. And they would not have a mixture of elements either.
No. They'd have
now, one
element.
thing that says, does the birthplace affect any of this? Last I checked, what I believe is that, like, the birthplace does if you are, depending on what type of thing you are. So if you are a Mangaian and an Ihuan, if those two marry, they go over to Mangaya. The child is more than likely to be Mangaian.
Yeah, it depends on your proximity to the region of your heritage.
Right.
If you have a Mangaian father or mother and you're closer to Mangai than you are to Ihu, then you would be a Mangaian.
So even if you're in Kane, for example, if you're closer to Mangaya than you are to Ihu, it's more likely that you will be.
The idea is the proximity to the elemental god that you are, closest to.
Right.
That's the idea. Is that the god is the one granting you your elemental powers. So keep in mind that the elemental powers are all coming from the gods of this world. So.
Right. And I mean, like, I'll also be aware too that, like, a lot of these, all of the original Matoran too, that all the ones were created beforehand. Once they started doing stuff, they can only have the two elements that the parents are. So you can't have a Mangaian and Ihuan and they give birth and it's a Tiron. It's like it will either be a Mangaian or Ihuan. Which one depends on how close you are. So. This guy asked, are we going to make Matoran our self-insert? So Vardaran, John, Messanak, Prpl, and Ven. I said probably not.
I have zero interest in doing
Freak
that.
is my insert.
Nice.
I'm not interested in myself. That's why I'm such a big fan of all these stupid worlds that have nothing to do with humanity, like Star Wars and Bionicle. I don't want to live my life again. I want to live other people's lives.
Yeah. I want to live in
That's
Westeros.
I'm boring as heck. Screw that.
Same.
Is Artaka a planet, and could this planet have more islands? Yes and yes, question mark?
Yeah.
Yes and yes, question mark.
Yeah, I don't see why not.
There very well might be more.
It very well might be. There's no answer to that.
Yeah,
and
there's no
I don't
answer
think
to
we
that.
need to develop an answer to that right now.
Until it's
No, yeah.
necessary.
Where is Karzani doing this again? He is imprisoned.
Yeah.
He is imprisoned very, very...
He's in prison the same way that Makuta has been imprisoned.
Right. Are
Very
any
careful.
Matoran to have made-up names? None of the canon ones. The non-canon ones that fans create could have made-up names, because that's how the Bionicle fandom works anyways, so sure. But,
I mean, if we come
No.
to a point where we need a Matoran that, and like we've already, there's no way we're going to exhaust all the pre-existing names, but if there is a moment where that would happen and we need a Matoran to fulfill a certain role, then sure, but
sure, yeah.
I mean, they're likely not going to have made-up names. We're trying
Are
to
there
stick with what
police
we have.
forces? Oh, sorry, I didn't know you weren't done.
No,
Are
that's
there
fine.
police? I would say that a lot of the cultures have their own type of police, obviously, to keep the peace. It varies from different places. Motara has no police. I say that they are all mercenaries, not really police.
It's a lawless land.
Some do have, like, the capital city of Motara does have mercenaries guarding that city because that's where the bank is. So that
It
is
depends on the
technically
region that you're in,
police,
because
but,
like Neho, for instance, you could say the Arbiters are the police force there.
also yes, yeah.
In like Ihu's a kingdom, so you could say like the army is part of the police force. They handle all the protection of the island and regulating the rules. And you can kind of say the same for the Mangai as well. They've got more of a
Military presence.
Yeah. So it depends. Kanai, there's not really much of a police force really. It's kind of just like a
Free for all.
free for all almost. Same with
Yeah.
Motara, but yeah. So it just depends on your region. Tiro, I'm not sure. I guess Tiro could have a police force.
Yeah, but
Anyway,
yeah, I think so.
The thing
I do
with
think
Tira is that
on
they're
the communes are like they're self-protected. So, but like
yeah.
there's less like conflict in Tiro to begin with.
Yeah,
because-
conflict in Tiro is just difficult to like. That doesn't really happen too much.
Yeah, I
They
mean
just have
it
like
happens. but, like,
strong parental disappointment as their police
dishonor
force.
on you, dishonor on your cow, dishonor on your mahi. There is.
Oh, there's a question you skipped over. Could we see a new Toa team in the future years other than the Protectors, like maybe the Amatorn from 08?
I'll never
When
say
our Toa
no.
die?
I'll never say no, but yeah, they basically all have to die.
It would mean our Toa would die. Yeah.
Yes, it's a
so
possibility.
BIONICLE G4.
I heavily doubt it.
The thing is, we are the journey of our G3. I would say is all about our current Toa. The story about our G3 is about the current Toa, and obviously, once they're gone, stories will continue to be told, and obviously there are stories before they showed up. But I think the core of this story is about these characters. So I don't think, unless there's a soft reboot down the line or something, that we are ever going to have a different team of Toa. Now, we might have an individual who might pass away and someone takes up that mantle. Who knows? But I wouldn't say that we would just slaughter our entire Toa team.
Let's call off Onua.
The core distinction to keep in mind between ours and then the actual Bionicle is Toa is a much smaller pool. In G1, they were almost a race of people, and you just had like a billion different Toa teams. The Toa Dark Hunter War, wasn't it? Or like, and no, we're not. We're not doing
No, we're
that.
not doing that.
Because they're of a higher status here. They're mythical beings.
Right.
If we add too many, we dilute the pool.
So one thing I want to bring up too, someone asked, the Mockingbird did ask, and it was also brought up later in the topic, with the Toa, if they die, what happens next? Do they, and like, basically the idea, I guess that we settled on, was that there have been generations of Toa, or Matoran, of no elemental powers, who never became Toa, but like, as soon as they died, a new one, like, the new baby that was born would be chosen by the gods as like their new kid, the new person who could take up the mantle of Tahu if Tahu was needed.
Yeah.
So if Kopaka were to die, there would be a new baby born.
Yeah. The problem that would arise though is that baby would not be able to become
right for
Kopaka
a year or so.
for some time. Yeah. So
And so,
essentially,
yeah.
essentially they would have to protect the new Toa until that Toa is ready to.
Right, and this time the Toa are staggered. I would say that the gods do kind of play around with like the life, not maybe not the lifespan, but like the destinies of each Matoran a little bit, just to make sure that because like right now all of our Toa happen to be around the same age except for Onua, and they're still kind of staggered, but like no one is like 70 years old, and then there's like the 15-year-old, because one died right after the other.
Well, it's Liwa and Onua that would be the biggest age differences from the other ones. The other ones are all pretty much the same age, but Liwa's the youngest and Onua's the oldest.
Right. But I'm saying that like that is still like Onua is what we would say about 30-some years
Around
old
that.
in terms of like around that, maybe 30, 40. He has a kid that's a teenager, so it may be around like closer to the late 30s. And Liwa would be like just a teenager, 16, 17, right? Would we say that?
Yeah.
But there's still like 30 years before Onua where all the Toa were around and they all died at around the same time. All the last Toa had to die at around the same time for all the Toa to be around. So.
Essentially what it would mean is that the last Toa team, Liwa would have had to have died first. Right? Or
Well,
would it,
not
would it be
necessarily.
the other way around. Onua.
I mean, like,
No, it would've been
imagine if you're
Onua.
like if you're a random Tomatoran. Wow.
yeah,
I
well,
said
it doesn't necessarily have to be Liwa, but it would have been the Matoran of air who didn't have air powers.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That Matoran died the first, or died last. Basically, they died last.
Yeah.
So and the Matoran of Earth who had didn't have any elemental powers died the first, basically.
Yeah. Essentially, whenever when the Toa are around, then obviously they're around. But if the Toa isn't around, that means that there's someone out there who doesn't have elemental powers.
Right. And
There's someone out there who needs to become the Toa.
There's also a thing too where like the first Matoran did have elemental powers when the gods joined up with them to become the Toa for the very first time. They didn't pick people out that time, so they have quote unquote bonded with people before, and they'll do it again where that they have elemental powers. If worse comes to worse, if there was a thing where there was like all the Toa were 70 years old and they were all kind of like they could possibly the gods could do it, they just don't like to. They're kind of picky if they choose.
Wadden asked another question, which is good. If the Matoran to become Toa next in line doesn't have elemental powers, then why don't other Matoran treat them as special? Then if this is no knowledge. Right. I would say the answer to that is that there's just because a Matoran of the current age are not being treated as special doesn't mean that there was a time in the past where they were treated as special. That likely did happen, but do keep in mind that we're currently living in an age where the concept of the Toa have been rejected. Most of our regions either don't believe in the Toa or they dislike the idea of the Toa, and the reason that is because they took away the mask long ago.
Right. And part of that is too, like, there's been generations about, I don't know how long. It's been 1,000 years or so since the last Toa, right?
It's been a long time.
Somewhere around. Been a long time. So there's been
concept
a lot
of a Matoran not having elemental powers isn't actually that special.
It's been lost to history.
And it's actually kind of like a lot of times people either try to hide it or not be as open about it. Several people in our story are a bit more open about it because they're put in positions where they need it. So Tahu's a general, and it's known that he doesn't have elemental powers because he is such a high up general and he's never used it, so it's like...
But like Lewa, for instance, no one cares that Lewa doesn't have powers. No one knows who Lewa is. Or Vizuna. Right,
except for Aruni. And Aruni, like, Norik does know about the prophecy, and he knows about the thing. He studied a lot of stuff at Tiro, so he knows about the prophecy of the Toa. I would say that's why he chooses Iruni and ascends him, even though he's kind of not that great, is because he thinks it could be useful against if the Toa arrive. Because he's kind of planning for everything, and once he knows that the Toa were around, he knows of the concept. Once he hears about a Matoran without elemental powers, he's like, oh. And I would say that he also knows that Tahu is as well. I don't think he knows all the other Toa, but he knows Narmodo.
Yeah, he knows that Tahu
could become Tahu. Right, yeah. Because, all right. Is the Red Star going to play any role in this?
No.
Definitely not in the way that it was in
Not
V1.
in the way that it was.
We don't currently have any Red Star at all, but there's might be a use for it in the future, but it will never be a zombie maker.
No.
That was stupid.
Maybe something Karzani.
Yeah. There was that Tendril of Time pitch that kind of had like a red line that was going out that, it kind of has a similar mystery to it. That
I like the imagery of the Red Star. I just want to actually find a purpose for it that would be fitting for its mysterious nature instead of something trite,
Oh, what if like Makuta, when Makuta has his ultimate power, he like he does something to the sun, and so the sun rises, but it's red. And it's a red star, huh? And it's like everything looks dark and dour because like
pretty epic imagery.
It's killing the sun.
I won't lie.
All right. What is the origin of the Mask of Time and the brothers?
And the brothers.
Who are the parents? Man, we're just ruin all the mysteries, huh?
I would say the Mask of Time was initially created as a undo button, basically, as they're creating the island. So if they made something you're like, they would just rewind it in the Mask of Time.
Undo button in Photoshop.
The Mask of Time was not meant to do anything to organic things. It was just for when they're creating, like Minecraft, if you're like sculpting something, you're like, oh, whoops. You're like, all right, let's just rewind that. And then you're like, okay, let's do a new volcano this time.
The Mask of Control Z.
Oh yeah, there's still that debate. I don't think we ever 100%
the Mask
settled
Control
about.
Z.
There's still that debate about whether it affects organic matter. I don't think we ever fully settled that.
I think we did. It doesn't.
You said it doesn't, and then we had a podcast without you, and we were like, it totally should.
What? That's time travel.
We don't have to use time travel, but it does seem arbitrary that it wouldn't be able to allow.
Okay, why does it seem arbitrary?
Well, because just why would it affect the surroundings of organic life but not organic life?
Because
when they Mask of Time,
they basically made the Mask of Time tied to the island so that when they're making the island they could undo it. Then when Ikimu makes the Matoran, he's like, I'm not going to put them in the system. I'm going to reject your system, man, because they're not supposed to be here.
that's not really how time works, though.
It also doesn't just undo, so it's kind of a big oversight, you know?
Let me think. Obviously, time doesn't work like that, but like the Mask of Time is not. It doesn't give you complete control over time. It has a specific purpose. So I guess So what are you saying? Let me hear your pitch out. All right, you're saying that it should affect organic material. Sure. What does it do?
Well, I don't have a pitch. What we're saying is that it
the
just feels
only
arbitrary.
reason to not have it affect organic material is because we don't want to do time travel, but we can elect not to do time travel independent of placing an arbitrary restriction on a mask's power. We can have the mask be at full power. We just elect not to use.
No, but okay. That would be a thing where the problem is if it has that ability, then that turns a lot of story things. So basically, the idea is that like if the Mask of Time, the restrictions is you can only revert locations back to the way they used to be, which is how they use that to revive Makuta, right? They turn the location back what it used to be. You can't use it to like control, like to reverse people. You can't de-age someone, and you can't go back in time in order to do something. That's why the organic stuff, like if we have that ability but we don't use it, then the whole question is, well, why aren't they using it? Why, when Tahu puts the Mask of Time on and he's using it, why doesn't he just turn Nork into a baby? Or why does he go back in time before Nork is born?
The strength
and
of the
kill him?
mask was based on the strength of the individual using the mask. That's why the Rahkshi weren't able to just use the Mask of Time, why they needed the Toa to use it instead.
Okay, so I actually am going to flip on this because I just had an idea that actually is really cool and explains something that has been a plot hole for me for a good while.
Oh, really?
And that is, why do the Rahkshi become Rahkshi?
Okay.
And what if it's like they are, like the part of the thing is kind of devolving almost. Like they're devolving back into Rahi, and that's why they're kind of like halfway.
Huh.
And so when Ikimu created the Matoran, he used like the forms essentially of like some of the Rahi and like changed them up obviously and gave him intelligence and did all that thing, and like he was like, yeah, but then like, and that's where the elemental gods are also like the embodiments are like kind of, they have Rahi appearances too, because they're the.
How interesting.
That's a pitch. I don't know what you guys think about that, but I don't know
I
why the
can accept
Rahi are
it.
half. I don't know why the Rahkshi are like half Rahi, half Matoran. We never really talked about that.
It was something to do with corruption.
Yeah,
there was
corruption.
the Mask of Monsters
Well, yeah,
pitch.
it was
which,
the corruption of the elements.
there was the whole Mask of Monsters pitch, which I liked, except for their ability to revert and change back and forth. But the idea of corrupting in such a way I was totally on board with, but your way also sounds like it achieves a similar purpose through less contrived means. We can have an evolution versus creation debate in Bonkle using this. Let's do it.
Yay!
Well, I mean, they were created, Meso.
But there's
To be
evolution.
Yeah, they were created to evolve.
They're
Theistic
created
evolution.
to evolve. I mean, listen, it's like the iPhone, right? The iPhone's definitely created. The iPhone also evolves. It's like, you know,
Quite. All right.
Okay.
I think this
we
is.
might have to
What do you
sit
guys
on
think
that
about
idea
that?
for a bit.
Okay, let's sit on that, but like let's revisit
Let's
it before we
return
forget
to
about
it.
it again.
Certainly.
Because I think that is an interesting concept, and it would
is.
sway me on if it helps explain an element of our story. It'll sway me on the thing if the Mask of Time is affecting organic matter. I guess like another thing is if Makuta got the Mask of Time, would he be able to turn all the Toa into babies and kill them? Because he can wear him. He can wear the Mask of Time and use it to its full potential.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, that's a good question. I think, I don't know. Because we also don't really know what happens to the Mask of Time after the fact, either. We don't really know what happens to it once.
Should we have it be destroyed?
It's
Be a good way to balance it.
It would be a good way to stop it.
Stick it in a
it's the
box
Dragon
and hide it
Balls,
under
dude.
someone's bed.
Yeah. Mask of Time's literally the Dragon Balls, and I'm okay with that.
Wow.
Because it was put in place for a reason, even though it completely fails. Because like they say, oh well, for suspension of disbelief and have death means something every time the Dragon Balls get used, they get scattered across the world. But it kind of failed because death still means nothing. But I get what they were trying to go for.
Well, I mean, all right. So can we? Here's the thing. Could someone die, and then everyone's really sad, and they're like, "We're gonna use the Mask of Time to bring him back to life."
Well, Makuta probably could. The Great Beings probably could.
Makuta
I mean,
brings Ikimu back to life, but then Ikimu's like, "Nah, bruh."
Yeah, because I mean, like, keep in mind these are characters that gave them life to begin with. Like they had
true.
the
All right, I'll
ability
give
to
you that.
create
You're right.
them to create life. So
Yeah.
I mean,
the Great Beings give it, and the Great Beings
if they can just create another person, then I think they can undo it and resurrect a person too.
That's fair. That's fair. All right, fair enough. I will give you that. The Mask of Time is a very interesting thing. We'll have to think about its place in the story after this.
Yeah,
in
I
terms
think
of, like,
Meso is
what's gonna
correct
happen
though.
to it.
I think that just because it can do certain things doesn't mean we need to have our characters use those things.
Sure, but as long as we come up with a reason why the characters
If we ever
don't
use
those
time
things.
travel, I rage quit the project.
No,
I have
I'm
a
done
burning
with time
hatred
travel.
for time travel because it
Time
seems like
travel is
it
like-
manifests in every franchise that I love and just
Hey,
eats it
Meso.
from the inside.
Well, okay.
You should read Homestuck. Meso.
Shut up!
The problem with time travel is that there's not an established rule for how time travel works, and people don't stick to that rule. They
I
always
loathe
break
it.
that rule. It's always like, oh, you can't go back in time and change anything. Everything's just the same way it is. And then
then
they're like,
sometimes
da da
you
da da.
can.
It's like, no, I ran faster. I'm running faster, Barry. I can change time. It's like, okay,
Hashtag
all
cursed
right.
child. Anyway.
Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
man. even the time turners with an established rule were kind of janky. And,
They were.
but not as janky though. The thing that we always look over in Harry Potter is the magic juice that makes everything perfect and makes you succeed in everything. We
That's the
don't
best, dude.
we completely I don't know why Harry wasn't like, you know what,
Felix
guys?
Felicis is the greatest
Like,
thing.
Can you imagine all the Death Eaters are coming to Hogwarts and they're like, guys, just make this in batches. Let's just start production on this. We're just gonna drink it all, you know?
And
or
they had that
Voldemort
hand
wasn't
wave
like,
excuse that it takes
Yeah.
months, but they had months,
yeah, it's like
operating in
why
secret.
why haven't you been the first thing, or even Voldemort? Why didn't Voldemort be like, you know what I'm gonna do before I go to Hogwarts? I'm gonna drink the magic success juice that will make sure I succeed.
I actually think he did try to do that at some point in the story.
Did he?
Yeah, I don't remember because I remember he tried multiple things before he resorted to the because he tried to get the Philosopher's Stone to bring him back. He tried to use Felix Felicis. He tried to do different things before he resorted to the other stuff. I don't know. I don't remember too much, but I feel like
We'll have
that's
to
something
read up on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, back to this though. So yeah, I the Mask of Time. I think there's definitely. So this is going to branch into the next question that he asked. So he asked about the origin of the Mask of Time, but he also asked about the origin of the brothers and who are the parents of the Great Beings. You know.
Yeah.
And these are things where our Bionicle. The idea behind it is that it's going to begin to branch into more cosmic themes.
Yes.
As it begins to expand past just this island,
Which I'm so excited for.
The whole point of the cosmic side of things is that there are things in our universe that we don't understand, and that we'll never have answers to, and that they are beyond our comprehension. And I think that that's kind of part of when it comes to the origins of the brothers. It's like, is there an origin to them? Yes, no, maybe. Who really knows? If we even had the answer to that, would we even be able to understand that answer? You know, that's kind of
Right.
what that would be.
The
Who are the
All
parents of
Father, Mara Nui.
Yeah.
Well, I
who
mean,
are the
that was a thing beforehand where we threw around the idea that a pitch that someone had made before, where it's like Matanui was the quote unquote the father. Is not really it was like it's like in a sense he was like that person, and he had the three brothers, and then they overthrew him and took his power for themselves. And then the same thing with the elemental gods, they overthrew the great beings, and they took their power for themselves and then gave it to the Toa.
Yeah. So I
All
think
possibility.
there's levels of comprehension and levels of understanding, and I mean I like the idea that Mount Tanui is the father, so that's fine. I like that concept. It's just what even is Madanui? What is he to the universe?
Yeah, right.
You know, like who knows?
He
We
will
have
not be
no
brought
idea.
back. He won't. Yeah, right. I feel like it says something that like the reason why we're leaving it ambiguous for now is because in the realm of the story again, and people have to remember this is a show about making a show. So a lot of times people will get something like this. We'll touch upon this in the story Bible too. People will get something and be like, "Oh, this seems unfinished," or "There's too much stuff going on and everything." And it's like, okay, you're watching a show about all the bits of backstory we're making up, and the actual show, and the context, the universe that we're creating in this show, where we're in charge of Bionicle. People don't know anything about it, and what they are going to know is what we're going to tell them. And what we are going to tell them is something much less detailed than what we've told you guys, the audience, because again, you guys are seeing us create the show, and we have to go through everything. We have to create the structure the world is in, and then we tell a story using that structure.
Plus, the reason why the structure is so important is because it's obviously for us as writers, but also it's, for expanded material. If there's ever like a guidebook or a website, we have that supplementary material to give others the opportunity to flesh out the world if they so choose. When you don't give any thought to that, you end up with a situation like G2, where it seems like all of the expanded lore was just made up on the spot and actually conflicted with one another. Like the website people would say one thing to try to flesh out the story, and then the book writer would say another thing to try to flesh out the story, and it didn't jive perfectly. If you give thought to the whole picture, you can then disperse it in ways that make sense for different audiences. It's really
even that too. Like if you have the entire structure beforehand and you write something, even though you haven't revealed that entire structure to the audience, it all makes sense because it's working off a structure you already have, right? It all makes sense within the thing you have. So if everyone is trying to read through the lines and doing theories and they're doing all that, a lot of the stuff that they'll have will still make sense. All your stuff your story will be consistent if you think everything through. But you don't tell your story to the exact level of detail that you've planned it, though. All it does is that, like, if as long as you hint towards stuff, all the hints line up and they're all consistent with each other because you made sure they're consistent because you wrote everything out. That's why we're doing that.
This is actually, since we've reached the conclusion of this guy's questions, I think this is actually a good segue into some of the other things that you wanted to talk about. Because last week, I think it was last week, we officially released the Work in Progress Story Bible on the boards.
correct.
Mm-hmm.
And you promptly got a smackdown of epic proportions for your grammatical sins. It's time to pay for your sins, Var. Answer for your crime.
I wrote part of it. I didn't write all of it.
To be fair, I feel like my sections were grammatically correct. Right?
I mean, fair enough. I didn't proofread my sections at all.
I thought that was interesting. Some people were like, "Did you give this to a proofreader before you put it?" And we're like, "What?
No. Why would we give it to a proofreader?
Why? Why would we give anything? Why would we hire someone to proofread something that's not going to be like
story Bible?
Yeah, it's like it's not going to be. The whole point of it is that, like, I assume if we were to see BIONICLE G2 or BIONICLE G1 story Bible, there would probably be errors and like stuff in that too, because that's not meant for public usage. The reason we're giving it to you, the audience, is because we're making a show about the show. This is not the wiki. This is not the thing. This is a show about a show, and you're looking into what the creative team would be doing. And in some cases, you acted as the members of the creative team.
The story Bible is not the same thing as a dictionary. It's not Makuta's Guide to the Universe.
Nor is it the same thing as
it's not a book. It would never be released as a book in the thing. This is behind the scenes what the creative team would be using, and so we're bringing it to you guys because the audience of BIONICLE G3, the Brickonicle people on that forum, they are essentially working as members of the creative team the same way that any like concept artist or anything will be. They'll come up with pitches, they submit it, and then like the heads of the story, the people writing the project, and the people in charge of the story division will look over that and be like, this is good, this might need work, this is not good, this doesn't fit in what we're saying. That's how this whole process works.
Yeah.
So they're given the story Bible so that you know a bit more about the story we created and everything we've talked about so far, so that you can make your own things consistent when you're making your own pitches. But it's not official, and it's not supposed to be like, or not official. It's not supposed to be an actual thing the audience in our that would be getting the show would get.
It is not intended to be polished. It is intentionally rough.
Right.
And
not that we won't correct the grammar mistakes. It's just kind of like people are complaining about them, and it's like they don't give us actual things.
The thing that I wanted to really get across is that it's a work in progress. It's not done. It's not even close to being done. It's not even in a first draft stage. The story Bible wasn't supposed to be released officially at all at this stage in time. The only reason it was because people were requesting it so much, and we had gotten to a point where if anyone wanted to actually contribute to the story, they needed to at least to know, the rules that we had, the foundations that we had established. So that's why it was released. But otherwise, it wouldn't have been made public in this state. The current story Bible as it is just us writing down the stuff that we immediately know off the top of our heads that are foundational and rules to our lore, right? So, for instance, there are sections that are missing because we haven't gotten to them yet. Those weren't immediate thoughts. We had to write down the things that we knew that we really needed to get down right away, like the regions and the backstory for that. You'll see character bios that aren't there right now. And so, like, for certain sections, for most of the sections, for me, like the ones that I wrote, I just wrote down the words in my head. I didn't even look at what I was reading. I'm sure there are spelling mistakes, or I didn't even look at what I was writing. So I'm sure there are spelling mistakes and grammar mistakes, but the point was to get the information there. So it's not even in the first draft stage. It's not finished. It hasn't been polished at all. It hasn't been proofread at all. It's just to get the words down. So
good, Var. I won't read anything without punctuation.
Without punctuation?
Yes.
Just in general.
I need punctuation to enjoy Bonkle.
One of the things that some people were saying too halfway through was like, all right, well, sure, was that like they felt that this wasn't strayed too far from Bionicle. They didn't like the concept of it being system. Well, let me see if I can find this post actually and see if I can read it.
There were a couple interesting points I did want to.
Okay, let me see if I can find this thing. The biggest thing that I remember him saying is that like G3, like G2 was more like Bionicle than G3, or so I was like, okay, I had that one I don't get. That one I don't get. I can understand if you don't like G3. Like you can not like this project at all. You can think it's too much. One thing you think it's too fanfiction-y. It's sure that's great. That's an opinion, and that's perfectly
Make
fine
me an
for you to
argument
have.
for why G2 is more like
right.
Bionicle.
I'm like, didn't G2 just have the Toa and Makuta? That's like literally all they had.
Okay, here is a post that I wanted to address by Maximus Primal.
Right.
I think this is the same one we're thinking of. One major issue I have with G3 as a whole is the change to the Earth region. And he says, some of the other changes make sense, but one thing I can't accept is the drastic change with Earth, changing it from a cave and underground setting to a dense forest setting. Generally, characters associated with the element of Earth have very strong characteristics, a powerful people who are content with keeping to their own. Having an Earth-based people set in an underground cave mining system is perfect for this, but having the Earth setting being dense forest doesn't fit this at all. And they go on, and he actually likes Liwa being a girl, and Bionicle as system. And he specifically says both those things are cool. And then he goes on to say, had G2 had more in common with G1 than G3 does. But why?
A good reboot makes sure not to stray too far from the source material.
I'm legitimately curious. If you would like to make another post after this, I'd like to have a dialogue.
Yeah.
If you like Bionicle as system, and the number one controversial thing you also like is the fact that Earth is in a forest, what makes G2 more like Bionicle? Is there another fact that I'm missing? I'm not seeing the one-to-one connection.
Let's also be clear. We don't know what the villages of Earth in G2 looked like. We don't, because we never got to see that. So they could have lived above ground for all we know, or we could have lived below ground.
We did. We saw villages of Earth.
Oh yeah, in the graphic novel.
Not even. We saw it before in the first year when Bionicle 2015 first started. They gave us renders of all the regions.
You mean the box art?
Yeah, I mean it was on the box art. It was the same artwork that they used for the box art.
Fair enough. Those all
see if
look
you can find
exactly
this for
the
me.
same.
Yeah, I'll post it. Like they're the villagers. They did
all had
look,
wall huts.
No, they were stalactites.
Hmm.
There's one.
Let me copy link. Oh, huh.
Yeah, we saw them before, and we got that for every single region, and there was multiple artwork for it.
Let me go to this one. Okay, so maybe I'm wrong here though. This doesn't look like it's on the ground. It looks like there's clearly some sun or something in the background.
Yeah, it looks like it's in like a cavern or a ravine or something.
A ravine or something.
But the funny thing that I found is that the Earth region is underground. Like there are parts that are underground.
That was the number one tenet when we made this change. We said they're still gonna have both, but because of the terrain, it's very easy to bleed in. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's partially underground, it's partially in the forest, and there's a lot of in between. If you look at the artwork that M.O.C made, that is pretty much canon. You can see that. Even the artwork that ZC made as well, or Z made, you can see that it's partially underground, it's partially on top of the ground. It's in both.
Yep.
Well,
I don't really know that point either.
Here, I'll copy this thing. Do we have a thing of Akimu's art real quick?
Akimu's box art?
Up. Sorry. What did I say? Umatu. Do we have does anyone have a link to
not
his?
Not in hand now.
Not on hand. Let's see if we can find it so I can kind of
go to the MJ gallery.
Are we really gonna pause the conversation to try and search for this picture?
No, I wanted to ask if you had it because you were talking about Umatu's art. I didn't know if you were looking at it at the moment.
It's on the MJ gallery. It's on the MJ gallery, but I don't know the login at the moment.
Yeah, I don't have.
You can remember it. Go there.
Okay. All right.
Otherwise,
we're not looking at the art, so it doesn't matter.
Now, don't get me wrong. I respond to Max vs. Prpl. Of course, he likely has other complaints and other critiques about it. It's just that one thing being the major issue. I'm legitimately curious. What are your other issues? And I'd like to know, how is G2 more like G3? Because he goes on to say
G1.
The old. Oh yeah, my bad. G1. If you were to just change a few character names, it would no longer be Bionicle. And if you were going to change this much, why keep it Bionicle? Why not start your own brand new story? Well, as we've said numerous times before, this is a show about Bionicle, the production of G3. It's Bionicle related because
the whole reason we're doing this is because we criticized LEGO so much during the course of G2 about their handling of Bionicle, and we decided to put our money where our mouths were and try to do it ourselves. That's the whole point of this.
It was always going to be Bionicle. You mentioned specific character names. Some people here were in favor of unique characters. And Var, you were definitely in favor of unique characters.
I was.
The reason why we're using the Toamata is because we feel, number one, that we can interpret those characters in a way that does remain faithful. I think we've done that. I don't think anything we've done has moved away from their core. And also because we're making a show about the production of this series, and people on YouTube like hearing about the Toamata. If we have original characters, it'll just be TTV's glorified fan fiction. But I don't think anything we've done has disrespected the core of anything. I'm not saying we're infallible. There might come a point in the future where we do something major and shift the paradigm of what Bionicle is. I certainly don't think we've done that yet. The biggest thing we've ever done, the closest we ever came, was getting rid of stone as an element and replacing it with something else. And we found a compromise for that.
Well, I mean, okay, again, the thing is, what do you consider to be the core of Bionicle? And for me, it's always been
is that everybody has a different answer to that.
Right,
which is
exactly.
a testament to how wide-reaching Bionicle is and the appeal it has, that people can have different answers. But we're just people just like you. We have our own ideas. We just happen to be the ones with the YouTube channel making this project. Doesn't mean yours are invalid.
Anyone can make their own thing. It's not like we're special just because the only thing that makes this any type worthwhile is just because we have a regular show where we continue to do this. A lot of times in other fan projects, what would happen is that they wanted to create a community project where everyone would come together, and then a lot of times those pitches would get out of hand because people weren't deciding what was canon and what wasn't.
Yeah.
And then it would lose focus, and then it would just kind of peter out because it wasn't the thing. So the only difference that we're doing, we're just fans. There's nothing about it that makes this even though Var makes a joke every time, that there's nothing about this that makes this official or more. The only thing is that we're continuing to do it, and we're also
not giving up.
Yeah, we're not just giving up on the thing about we're a year into it, and we're also not accepting everything that comes into as oh, this is canon because it came from the community. We are having a rigid thing that we are deciding upon, that we're having other people help us inform. Switch this other photo.
So that was the big thing that I wanted to discuss from the Story Bible topic. But if there was any post that particularly caught your eye.
Well, I think the thing too of like G2, the one thing he does say, and I get the principle behind it, but a good reboot makes sure not to stray too far from the source material. That's true. I would also go to far as to say a good reboot also does something new with the source material while also paying homage to the old things, and that's the thing.
The middle ground, people.
I
right,
think we are perfectly on that middle ground.
I think so too. I think what we've expanded the villages with, they are just slightly better realized versions of the ones in G1.
We've got tribal villages with a mask plot element, superpowered beings, a race of villagers, elemental powers, cool weapons, a bunch of callbacks, repurposed names, story materials. That's Bionicle. What isn't Bionicle about that? What are we missing? That like is all
well,
about
Leela's a girl now, so
which she liked.
Which he liked though.
That's true. I know that's the thing. I don't get it. The nature and also Earth has been a bunch of like there's a lot of interpretations of the element of Earth. You know, it's not like we just pulled this from nowhere. A lot of times people do like you know the Earth power Gaia, for example, is tied in with nature as well, and so kind of. We just kind of expanded that outwards to give Earth a more distinct culture than Stone, because almost everyone was, everyone kind of agreed that Stone and Earth are very redundant elements. Even in G1, they added them in because they wanted 6 toys to sell instead of 4. That's why Leela and, that's why Onua and Kopaka exist, is because they had, Pohatu and Kopaka exist, is because they had the 4 elements: earth, fire, air, water, and then they're like, well, let's sell some more stuff. So they added the ice and the earth region. But earth has always been redundant, and so we didn't even change it. I guess we did kind of change the element in Bionicle, but we added an element of elements that's been consistent with other interpretations of the element in order to give it a bit more of a separate identity.
Exactly.
It's so confusing too. I don't even understand. Like, I just posted a bunch of different pictures of Onua from various years, right? And to me, I find it really striking how similar the environment is to what we have canon in ours. Well, obviously different, but I'm
gonna see the first.
The only thing it's missing is the color green.
Yeah, it's like
a little bit of green here and there.
It's not like it's a drastic change. I don't really understand why he thinks it's different.
Yeah.
Also Onua G1, and this is Onua G2.
So, that is pretty much all the time we have for this week.
Bummer.
Yeah.
So,
Prpl, I'm so glad you're able to be here and give some contributions.
Yeah,
to what's
I'm
going
glad
on.
I was here too. Yeah.
What's your opinion on everything we just talked about? With
I don't know. Earth is cool. Don't litter. Yeah. See, I don't really have like opinions on stuff. So.
Really?
Do you not? You really don't have opinions on stuff?
I don't like. I can't instantly form an opinion on things. I have to hear like all these different viewpoints and then just sort of come to my own conclusion before I can do anything.
There was a post here from member Froku who said, Leela and Aruni's backstory kind of reminds me of Blake and Ilya from Ruby. And I was like, oh no.
Oh no, dude.
My favorite plot line in Ruby Season 5.
To be fair, I don't mind Ilya as a character. It's just
I don't mind it as a character, I just think it's how
it's...
it's being like how it's being portrayed. But like the moment you read that comparison, I was like, yikes.
I also don't really think it's that similar, to be honest, other than 2 people who were friends at one point are no longer friends.
They're trying to say like, oh, it's the corrupting influence or whatever, but there's plenty of that in,
I guess the idea is that there's a secret cult too that like corrupted her
the
friend.
Rahkshi or the White Fang, basically.
Yeah, the Brotherhood's the White Fang.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Well, he was never a part of the Brotherhood, though.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's true. She didn't date Norik. That would be weird.
Oh no.
Yeah.
But
all right. Anyway, that is all the time we have for this week. So we will return next week with some more discussions. We'll try to have
before the general questions topic gets updated a third time.
Oh God, please stop with the questions.
I like your
questions.
No,
I actually don't do that. I'll disagree with our here. I think it is actually meaningful.
No, don't stop.
There's some real questions that need to be answered. There's some stuff that we've ignored.
It wasn't a thing that was an actual statement that you need to disagree with about. It was just, I'm saying things.
People would get confused on the thing. People, you know how people are.
No, stop with the questions. Never pitch anything. Stop with your artwork. Go away.
There we go. There we go.
Unsubscribe.
Unsubscribe right now. If there's any confusion, I hate you. Don't come back.
Bionicle
This has been
sucks.
Bionicle. This has been Brainstorm G3 Bionicle discussion. It's great. We'll see you guys next time. If you're still around after I told you to leave, you can head to our Patreon at patreon.com/TV.
You're still around. Give us some money.
You can head to our Patreon and hand us some money.
If you actually like this, yeah, give me us.
I like
you
all you guys.
can become a patron and join the live studio audience where you can post comments and stuff and listen to the recordings as they happen live, which is pretty neat.
Yeah.
I'm
You
Var.
hear all our
I'm
technical
Meso.
difficulties.
I'm
Shut up,
John.
Prpl.
Yeah, shut up,
I
Prpl.
was
I'm
talking
John.
and then
You
Var
had
started
your
talking.
chance to
So-
talk.
It's been a long
I was
discussion.
already
talking.
I didn't want you to talk. You could have done it earlier.
I'm on a screen.
You had an entire episode to say something.
Wait until the freaking end. Go away.
Right now-
You go away. You stop. I hate you. Shut up! We'll see you guys next week.
Bye.
Goodbye.
I'm Prpl.
I still appreciate you, Prpl. Just a little less now.